I got to ask the new HoI4 Director some questions about custodian work, the future of HoI4 development, and more. I added chapters so you can skip the boring stuff, and if this is popular, we can repeat this for the next DLC with your questions. To do so, simply join my Discord if you want to send your questions to them.
My name is Niels Uitwijk. I'm also Gorion or Gorebear on Reddit and Gorion on forums. I've been at Paradox for 8 years, and I've been studio manager at Studio Gold, who is working on Hearts of Iron for the last 2 years now, so since Got the Damn Room, basically.
My name is Laszlo Pieper. On the forums I go by Batja. I've been at Paradox for 2.5 years now, and I've been working on HoI for about 7-8 months-ish, so like basically at the start of the end of last year. And I'm the new game director, so that's what I've been doing.
And how does your day-to-day look like right now?
Busy. I mean, it's all right. It's as a game director, there's a lot of things like happening all the time, right? Because we're working on multiple things at the same time. So I also always have to sort of jump in between these things. There's also the whole community aspect, talk with the community, making sure that we read the stuff that needs to be read and we fix the bugs that need to be fixed. So prioritization comes into play a lot. So there's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Overall, it's all right. Like.
For me, there is a lot of meetings, and then in between the meetings, I usually answer Slack or help like people out with stuff, and then for about 2 to 3 hours a week, I do some programming on the game.
How big is the team currently, and has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it has changed quite a bit. I think back in the day, 2018, when I joined Paradox, I think HoI was maybe around 20 people. Maybe not even, actually, maybe they were slightly smaller, but these days we're 35 people actually, so we're quite a bit bigger.
The most important topic that I want to talk about today is custodian work. Like we've seen some smaller quality of life changes with like the not division templates, the template presets, where you can save them and then you don't have to click them every single time. How much time are you allowed to dedicate to work like this?
Allowed. We usually have this thing where we do, we call them war efforts, right? I know this large team has sort of branded the same thing, but then there's custodians. Allowed. Yeah, it's not really how it works. It's like usually planned in.
Yeah, it's quite planned. It's more like how important is this right now? Because game health on a 10-year-old game is just in general quite important. So I think it's more of a, what are things that we really wanted fixed, and it's not only from the community side of things. It's also there's a lot of things internally that the developers feel like, this bug or this thing has been bothering you so much. Like there's a lot of quality of life things with the UI or the UX that in one screen it works one way and another screen it works another way. And it's just because there's been different developers working on it or was released in a different DLC. And just trying to unify those things. So it's very much a matter of finding those things, like finding those issues, and also seeing like where are the pain points for the community. And then, I try, like whenever I have some extra time on my hands, I try to sort of like figure out like, what are the little things that I can, fix. And then I go talk to a coder if I need some help, like, hey, can we do this little thing? Maybe we can get it into a patch. So there's that happens sort of like in between everything.
And there's unplanned work as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And that happens like at random times. So basically when people are done with like, okay, I've sort of finished the work now and I'm like waiting for people feedback, then they usually jump on stuff like this.
We have a big backlog of stuff.
Is there any interest or push for like a dedicated custodian team? Like even just cross game where you have like a team working on CK3 and HoI4 at the same time, and then every month or a couple of weeks they switch between the games?
Yeah, so that will be quite difficult. Like the games are
different.
Foundationally they're quite the same, but also very different. It's a bit strange to talk about it this way. So that team would not be effective. No. We discussed like what would an internal custodian team look like for HoI4, but like we have the war efforts already. Me and Laszlo, we discussed at the start of the year like ideas on making that a bit more structured approach.
Yeah.
So we have some ideas for that, and we're gonna those are like gonna be put into practice. But nothing like what you're saying now, like where we have like one team between the games.
But we do want to have like a bit more focus on like game health in between like bigger releases, you know, like fixing outstanding bugs, like doing more balancing. Do think is very important. Like I said earlier, the game is quite old and it definitely benefits from it.
Yep.
It's a matter of like finding that time where we can sort of slot that in, but we do want to make it part of a sort of more general like player flow or like release flow, I would say.
What does success look like for the custodian work? Is it just, okay, we have 1 month for the HoI4 patch, and then once this month is over, we're gonna, you know, spend a couple more days to fix everything that we have in that we're working on right now, and then we move on to developing the DLC? Or
I mean, I can fill in a little bit. Like I think part of sort of our quote-unquote custodian work, right? We had an open beta, or 2 open betas actually, like at the start of this year. One of them was focused on like naval fixes, following NCNS, and one of them was more like general quality of life stuff and improvements for the anniversary. And one of the things that we then looked at, like there was a lot of like feedback around Navy, for example, from the community, right? And one of the things that we feel like, okay, you know, we need to put in an effort, and we want to have input from the people, from the players. And I think for us, that success was kind of when we launched that, or first of all, actually, we got a lot of input. That's one part of the success, right? We want to see players be engaged and like be happy with the changes, but also feel that they have a say in like the things that happen, or at least they're being heard when changes are being made. So that's one part. But then when we've actually released that, when we rolled that into the actual game as a patch, just seeing like that people are overall much happier with how Navy works. Like, sure, there's probably still 100 things we could further improve, right? But it's in a pretty good state now. And that to me is like what success looks like. And the sort of like beta, you know, program, or what you want to call it, like where we have more open betas, where people can opt in and have an influence or an impact on the game. That's something that we're looking into continuing. So I think that's the closest that we'd have to sort of a custodian effort. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. You gave a really good answer, Laszlo, and like I think there's like a single instance in me that was like, because I did a lot of the AI work for the anniversary, and so I was talking with these people on the forum quite a bit, like the same 4 or 5 people that were like testing out the Navy changes and giving me feedback, and at some point they all said like, oh yeah, this is now in a good place. Like when I got sort of that feedback, then I felt like, okay, now this is like, okay, now we're sort of done.
Yeah.
And of course, immediately afterwards, once we actually launch it out of the beta, because very few people actually play the beta, compared to who play the main game. You get a lot more feedback, and of course, then we know we're not done yet. But you know, it still felt like, yeah, we've achieved at least the goal that we were after.
Yeah.
What's the best way to give feedback? Is it just the forums, Reddit, or everything combined?
Everything is fine. We read it all.
We have people. I mean, I try to be active on the Reddit and like for me personally, and the forums. But we have like, this is why we have community ambassadors, right? And the community team, they all make us aware of things, and it's very much a cooperative effort. I use this word a lot, but it's just the way how games work. You know, I only have 2 eyes and glasses. But like I only have that many people. Sorry, I had to make it. But there's only that much I can see, right? And like basically, the community people are very helpful. And when something pops up, or even my tech lead, like people will reach out to me like, "Hey, have you seen this?" I'm like, "No, I haven't," or "Yes, I have, and I'm already on it." So like any of our channels is fine, like Steam, Reddit, the forums. We'll most likely pick up on it. But yeah, not everyone is as active on all of those channels, is what I can say. But we have people basically looking, like keeping an eye on all of those. I think the most important thing is like when you give feedback, it needs to be constructive, which is it's very hard.
Yes.
Like even internally for developers, I think giving very constructive and clear feedback is not an easy skill. But you know, like having people just like basically saying this is bad is feedback. Don't get me wrong, it tells us something. It tells like, okay, people don't like this. But if you say like, this is bad because X and Y, then that gives us so much more input, right? So that's I think the big giveaway I can tell you. That helps a lot if you give more context as to why you don't like something. Otherwise, it's sort of guesswork, and it takes much more time on our end to like figure out what the root of the problem actually is.
One thing I thought was really cool were the studio updates after Graveyard of Empires. You know, like, I haven't been with Paradox Interactive that much, but a couple of DLCs, not just for HoI4 but also other games that were received poorly, would have just been brushed under the rug, and then, you know, next DLC, work on that one. Did anything change internally after Graveyard of Empires?
Yeah, so Graveyard of Empires are such a tricky one. I mean, when we released it, it was not at the quality that it should have released. That's very clear. And we identified, I mean, we talked about this in the studio updates. And I know that, I remember when I wrote them, like the replies that I gotten, like a lot of people didn't really trust us, which I also understand at that point. But what I talked about then, like, this is what happened. Basically, we have a lot more rigorous sort of like go no go meeting. It's basically the last meeting that we have before we decide if we should go ahead with the release or if we should delay. So it's a lot more rigorous.
We also changed the process a little bit, so it's a bit more, you know, it's like a not a maybe, it's a yes or no kind of thing. It's more binary, because otherwise it's too easy to interpret.
And we do quite a bit more, not quite a bit more, but we do more structured. We do the same amount of playtesting, but we do more structured playtesting, so that there's more focus on sort of like, okay, now we're going to be playing Communist Australia path. And then you have 15 to 20 people playing that and giving feedback on that, right? So now that's like, we do that. Before we was like a bit more, okay, let's play the new content, the new DLC. Whether people would play Sweden or they would play Germany, and it's like, okay, but you know, you're not then interacting with the new content. I would also say the team, we grew the team a bit because we realized that, we were probably a bit too small for what we were trying to do, releasing 2 DLCs a year. So that's why we're 35 people now. I think back then we were 25, so we're quite a bit bigger. And then we have external QA and everything. So I think the total people who work on HoI is probably around 60. So it's like quite a lot larger. But yeah, Graveyard of Empires was like quite impactful on the development and how we approach things.
Jumping from 25 to 35 must have also brought some growing pains, I bet.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fine. We did not do it in one single go, right? Like it took some time to get there. But yeah, there are some growing pains.
I don't know any better. I joined quite late, so.
Yeah, exactly. For you, it was already the case.
I think it's a very comfortable size, but it's true. The team needs to get used to each other, right? There's new people in the mix, and you need to sort of like feel how do these people, you know, interact with the wider team, and like how sort of experienced are they with the game, etc. So there's a lot that comes into play, and this is something as well that we look into quite a lot, which is why we made some changes to how we play the game, right? We can never guarantee that everyone that works on the game is like a elite expert, but like we try to sort of like be more how do you say, beginner friendly. Have like when we do multiplayer sessions, we right now we split it up into sort of the session where we don't really do PvP and the one where we do, and then in the PvP one it's like, you know, the little bit more experienced players and they think it's more fun to have some interaction with others, which is also good on the other side, that we have a lot of people, relatively speaking, that play multiplayer, so we then get to test, you know, co-op and various these things, etc., that only happen in MP, because we sort of stress test it a bit more. So that's sort of an additional benefit that we've found with that as well.
Thunder at Our Gates is also sitting at around 30% positive reviews on Steam right now. What's your read on why, and like, how does the team deal with that?
Yeah, so the reason why is I mean, we had a few bugs on launch, so that sort of, I think, made people leave negative reviews. And we also know that people afterwards, they don't change reviews. So that's just how it is. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. That's fine. So we messed up with like the DLC, like you have to, like, the DLC icons in the bottom left of the screen, right? We made a typo in so that it doesn't highlight up. So then people thought it was not activated, even though it was actually working. So that is like a silly mistake. That can't happen anymore. But but yeah, still it was a costly mistake. And then I think we had one crash that happened if you had the 4-way civil war in Spain with the anarchists and the Carlists. That never appeared when we were testing internally or when I think content creators were playing it either. So that was just unlucky. But besides that, like those are like sort of like the little mistakes we can fix. But the real thing for why it's now at the rate where it's at is like, I think people are not finding the price versus sort of the value of the content that people are getting for that. And that is something that, I don't know if it surprises us, but a little bit in a way. But yeah, I mean, whatever we think of it, it doesn't matter because the players are right anyway, right? Like that's what they tell us. So but this comes from the background is that we used to have these country packs that was just purely focus trees, and it was very clear that people were not looking forward to that. Like, so we moved away from that by basically creating like a mini expansion like this, by adding gameplay features to it, like with Arm HQ and ship medals. And then we also added a larger free feature to it with the regimental supports and the Division Designer UI rework. But clearly that's not enough, so we have to sort of think what we can do next time to sort of hit that player value basically. Do you have any more thoughts on it, Lasso?
No, I mean this is the big one I was going to bring up as well. Like it's the player value proposition. This is the main thing that we saw. Like yes, there is, obviously if we would have not had that Spanish Civil War bug, that would have been great. But I don't think that was the biggest issue. It is the value proposition.
No, and the first day was about half the people were talking about that.
Yes,
it was quite much.
I completely missed that.
Yeah, no, but I mean over time that disappears, right? Because like we fixed that the next day, so then it doesn't affect them.
At what point does a review trigger a response from the team? Like, especially with Graveyard of Empires. Like, I assume always,
Exactly, yeah. So like this is just, I mean, as a dev, right? Like you worked on this content for quite a while, and then it goes out. You're going to be super curious what people think of it. So they read everything, they watch everything, they listen to everything. And then usually the way it is, it's much easier to sort of remember the negative stuff. So there needs to be some sort of like, you need to be able to talk with your fellow devs about that as well, to sort of just process it. But even if, like with the release of Gut to Them Room, which was like quite successful, people really, really liked that. Internally, we felt very shaky about it because I think the final build that we delivered was made half an hour before we went live. So it's one of those things where, and this, like, with NCNS, we were also, we were much better, but with this release, the build was actually done.
It was very stable. I mean, we did do one hotfix a day before, I think, into that build, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's quite normal, I would say. But with Get to Them Room, it was like the last minute.
Yeah, it was, according to the tech lead, it was probably one of the most stable builds and bug-free as well that we've had in a while. I mean, sure, there's always bugs.
But to answer your question, like the team, they respond immediately, and we always evaluate every release afterwards. Anyway. But we work with, I was going to say we work agile, but for the people who know agile, like we don't actually work with agile, but we do retrospectives in the team. And so retrospectives are basically sort of a meeting where you sort of reflect upon the work that's done and how it's been done. And you do that fairly regularly, or at least we do that fairly regularly. And then we also have to do a post-mortem, so which is like a larger thing, where we look at the overall thing, like, okay, how did this go? What have we learned? And then we take those learnings into like, the next time we start working on something.
The past couple of DLCs have been received rather poorly. How do you plan to avoid that in the future?
I mean, if we look at the sort of that value proposition that Niels was just talking about, I think that's just a big question mark that we have to sort of answer. Like, okay, how do we get that value proposition in the level where the player feels like they're getting their money's worth out of what they're buying, right? And the problem is that's always a bit subjective. So this is, I don't have a 100% answer. Like this is the exact thing we're gonna do, but we are like actively like, okay, so how do we sort of make that gap between ourselves and the community, where we get more in line of like, okay, this seems fair for what we're asking and what you actually get out of it. And this is very complex because this gets into like what you call it, like socioeconomics almost. Like I know friends who are like, well, this costs like 4 pints at the pub, which would equal to 4 hours of fun. So if you buy this DLC or this game for $20, then I can have 100 hours of fun or 30 hours of fun. So in that case, it's good. But some people, they prefer going to the pub. So it's very hard, like, to put an exact finger on like what is fair, what isn't. So it's not an easy one. But we like I said, we do very much look into it. We look at the reviews and we are actively saying like, what are the things we can change and we need to change in order to turn this around, because it is better for us as well. Like all the devs, they work on this because they want to make something awesome, like including us. And it feels bad. Like I will say, I've had my fair share of shoddy releases over 9 years of game development, and it feels kind of bad. Like, oh, I put a lot of effort into this, but you often also go like, yeah, fair enough. Like community at some point. So it's good to have this sort of communication channel with the community and like be open about the things, like when we do bot shop or when we do something cool.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with typical Paradox as well. Like you can be sure that we'll fix it. Even though you might want it now, but we'll eventually fix it.
We've already talked about some features, with the, what is it, theater packs now? That they are not just country packs, but they also have some base game features. How do you deal with the tension of deciding what feature should be DLC and what should be base game?
That's a very good question.
So basically, like in an ideal world, if something becomes sort of mandatory to play, then it becomes free. So regimental support is an example of that. I think we discussed in the beginning, like, okay, let's make that part of the DLC so people have to buy it. But then, like, it clearly becomes like, okay, now this is just the new thing that you want to do. You always want to add regimental support to your divisions, and then it should be part of like the free patch. And what we could do down the line is when we start introducing specific regimental supports to a country, we could maybe put that, when the DLC lock. I don't think we have any plans for that at the moment, but
that's the gist of it, of how it works pretty much. But it's a pretty challenging one, right? Because you then need to sort of think ahead into the future very, very much and see like, okay, do we feel like we want to adjust anything or like change anything? Because once you put it in a DLC lock, then it kind of becomes this thing that it kind of goes into stasis. You can't really touch it anymore. And if you do, then like you're working on a DLC that has already been released, hypothetically speaking. If you work on something, you're improving it. So then you're taking time away from what you're actually supposed to be working on for the next DLC to make that sort of like a nice and cool package. So that's this weird trade-off. It's not really a HoI only problem, I would say. Like some of our other games have this issue as well. This is partially one of the reasons why I don't remember when it exactly happened, but there's been a few of the early DLCs that have been rolled into the base game, right? Because then, like, without rolling in Mandy guns, there could not have been an NCNS with Navy stuff. Basically, it was just not impossible. And I mean that is tricky, right? Because there's some people that bought this. I bought this myself as well. I bought Waking the Tiger, Man the Guns, Together for Victory, and Death for Dishonor with my own hard-earned cash 10 years ago. So I understand, like, the sentiment around is always mixed. It's like some people were like, well, it was X years ago, and some people go like, yeah, I paid for it. So it's tricky, but that's one of the reasons why we do this, because otherwise we're sort of painting ourselves into a corner too much. So sometimes we just have to take that liberty a little bit in order to make the game,
the base game better.
Yeah, make the base game better and build on top of it rather than keep on adding more and more and more. Because then you also walk into the issue of now we're just adding more and more and more. And it's all DLC locked. Now there's so much stuff that you have to maintain in different versions, etc. And that adds a lot of development overhead.
What does it take for old systems that have been broken for a long time? For example, conditional surrender. That button is just in the game, but I don't think it does anything. What does it take to rework that one or fix that one?
Depends on how old it is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I've ever pressed that button.
No, neither have I. it's like there's, because this is probably a case of this game is old and it's like a legacy thing, right? That you had this button, there was this idea around, and then not really happen anything. In some of those cases, like it really depends. Like, I don't think we necessarily will just remove things out of the game, but if we, for example, like one of our coders comes to me and said like, well, if we would remove unconditional surrender, then that would give us a 2% performance win. You know, the game will be 2% more performant. They're like, who uses it? And then go look at the data and say like, no one presses it. I'm like, okay, just get rid of it. That might happen, but it's more of a case by case, I would say. If it's actually features that people don't really use, then it's more of a, why don't people use this? Is there something we should be doing with this instead? You know, is this part of the DLC as well? Is this part of the base game? Is this something we could potentially revamp either for free or make part of a DLC to flesh it out? So there's a lot of questions that come with that, I would say.
I mean, again, this is like the feedback bit, right? So if you leave feedback for the game, then you can mention like, hey, what about these old mechanics?
HoI4 is still growing, so there's still a lot of people that keep on playing the game. How do you balance making it fresh for veterans, but also approachable for newcomers?
That's
a good question.
That is one of the big challenges that we have to deal with pretty much all the time, and with all the other Paradox games as well, right? I think since I played HoI when it came out, I remember it was one of the easiest games to get into, and that was, I think, so I basically come from EU3 and EU4 mostly. I played a lot of Victoria 2 and 3 as well. So when this game came out in 2016, I was like, wow, this is so easy to get into. Like, you know, it's pretty straightforward. You have the front lines, then there's some micro you do, and the economy is very nice. Like underneath it all, it's quite complex, but sort of the initial layer to the player when it came out was like super clean and super simple. And then it just sort of suffered from the, well, only the majors are really fun to play issue. I mean,
there's no alt history either.
It's not entirely true. I still had fun with like smaller nations, but you know, the main focus was on the major countries. Yeah, the balance around that's like, it is very tricky. I think we mostly tailor towards like what we want to build on the audience we have. Sure, we want to keep on growing as well, right? But we want to sort of make the people that stick with us for a long time enjoy our games and give them cool stuff. But I think the company as a whole, and we're no stranger in this, I think, has shifted that we, you know, onboard more people that do UX design, for example, and they will help us. Okay, so when we do these new features, how can we make this more accessible to players? And, you know, when we look at, for example, old stuff, like when we do have a war effort or we do a free patch as part of a release, like what are little things that we can change that make it nicer to interact with? Like, I have some gripes with how naval UX works, for example, where it feels very different from the army. Like with the army, you know, you have the little, the summary of all the units at the top, and you can click it, and now you select all the infantry divisions in this army. It's great. In Navy, it's like, I still sometimes forget, like, oh, I have to click this and this. Where do I grab my submarines? And I know why this is the case, right? It's because our navies work very different from armies under the hood. But I would very much like to change stuff like this. Then as a player,
up your task forces.
Yeah, it's like
oh,
sometimes it really makes me angry. But what I'm saying is like getting stuff like this under sort of the same hood where it works in similar ways. It's very beneficial to us if we can do it right. Because then as a player, I go like, oh, I don't understand Navy. Why don't you understand that? Well, the UX is completely different from Army. But if you can pull those closer together, then you can go like, oh, you know, it's very similar because Army works like this, and now I can interact with my Navy this way. So that is ways how we can improve it. But in general, we kind of know that when we release a new DLC, and there's going to be new features, that this is just hard. It's a tax on newer players.
So one of the things that we sort of have in mind with this as well is that we introduced this with the doctrines. We added like a little button to show like the full details of like the tooltips. Now if you don't click it, you just get sort of like not a summary, but you get like less information, and then you have to go into like each doctrine and sort of see, okay, what if the entire tree gives me, but you need to click a button for that, right? And so that is something that we're going to be experimenting more with, I think, to sort of like hide the mega dense information that me as an experienced player 100% wants. But as a new player, you don't actually care about this stuff. Like, it's too complicated. Yeah. So we sort of hide it behind stuff like that. That is something that we're experimenting more with. And in general, we try to make the onboarding experience to new features also easier by paying attention to that with the new features. But I would say that is only something that we started doing like fairly recently. Like I think since Got to Emerald.
Has there been a system that was too complex, where you were like, okay, like this is fun, interesting, but for new players it's too complex. For veterans it's gonna be a little bit complex. We're gonna dump it down.
Yeah, I don't think. No, so dumbing down stuff is not really the way I want to do that. It's not our game anyway, right? The only reason why we say no to features is if it's fucks with the performance too much. Like that's the main reason why we say no. And then if it's not fun, obviously.
That's the main.
That's the main reason. Performance is separate. But if it sort of qualifies performance and it qualifies fun, then we'll find a way to make it work in the game. Even though we might have to do 3 or 4 iterations to get the UX right.
That's usually the way to go. Like, try to make it work. I mean, you can always run into that, like we really cannot make this work, and then it might get cut or like simplified a little bit, but that's not the initial step, right? We want to have a fun, like cerebral game that is complex or has enough complexity that you can dig in and have fun making all your divisions and like finding your crazy strats, but it should not be too complicated. Then I feel like I'm being sort of like I'm wrestling with the game. I don't want to be wrestling with the game, right? I want to like sink my teeth into the content, into the gameplay, and not have to like wrestle with UX or UI or whatever. So that's a very important distinction to make as well.
Are there any systems that the HoI4 team feels like are still missing?
I don't think there's necessarily stuff missing, but I do think there's stuff that we can definitely take a look at. Like something that we've been thinking of.
I mean, for a bunch of stuff we're working on right now. So.
Yeah, true.
It's too soon to talk about.
Might or might not be working on what I'm about to say now, but no, something that we've sort of toyed with. Like, should we look into like how air works? Because like it feels quite binary. Sure, it works. It gets the job done, right? The focus on HoI is on the land combat, but having a bit more granularity there and like getting that feeling like I'm actually building these heavy fighters to do bomber interception, which light fighters are not as good at, etc. I think that could be interesting. But that's not necessarily like a whole new system. I mean, sort of, but it's more of a rework or like a refresher on like what is already there, and like make that more fun and interesting. Because I think Navy now has had a lot of updates, right, with NCNS and post NCNS, and then land combat in general just like is like the poster child. It just gets a lot of attention. And then air, I mean, you had the air designer with By Blood Alone, of course, that was nice. But then when it comes to the actual like how air works, that like small tweaks here and there, but nothing like big, I would say.
No, exactly. And I know that from the original design document for By Blood Alone, I think like half of it had to be cut in the end. But
no time.
No, exactly, and that's quite normal, to be fair.
One thing that is a big complaint, or people like to complain about, is like the AI can't use feature X or can't deal with Navy. How important is AI improvement for the dev cycle?
I mean, it's super important. Yeah, like we always we spent quite a bit of development time actually on this. It's true that I agree with you, by the way, and I agree with you. The AI is not capable of using all the features, and that's like a conscious decision. Sometimes it's like way too difficult to make the AI be quite. Yeah, I mean, performance is one aspect, but also like how can the AI actually make good choices? So, as an example, with ARM HQs, the AI uses ARM HQs, but I also know players love to encircle these generals. And then the AI has no generals left anymore, which would weaken them massively. So we just put a hard cap on that. And we also made the AI a little bit more like cautious with ARM HQs. But still, of course, they're going to get captured. Because, of course, we all want to see this Barbarossa.
Actually quite smart. Like, not sort of like toot our own horn, but I play the game quite a lot in my free time. And I've seen so many times where it's like, oh, I'm about to get Erwin Bormo. And then he's like, nope, I'm just going to delete myself from the map. because he thinks he's gonna get encircled, and he just removes himself. It's like it's both frustrating, but also like, well, at least it's not too easy to get.
Yeah, but so one of the things I know that the community talks about quite a bit is like the meta templates, right? Why doesn't the AI use meta equipment templates or division templates? And the simple reason is that we're making not that kind of game. So mods do this, and I'm very happy for those mods to exist. They're very fun to play against. I get my ass kicked immediately, but we try to build somewhat historical game, and so we use somewhat historical templates, which then are not, you could go stronger. So.
We did talk about, like, this is a big topic in the design team in general, was talking about sort of the designers, like the tank designers and also the template designer. That the historical options should probably more often feel like they are the go-to choice, right? With some deviation, like a Russian tank with like 6 turrets should necessarily not be the meta, or something like this with like 20 reliability. That should probably be more like a T-34 or 85 is like the meta instead. So we also toyed with these ideas, like maybe we should, we do a bit of a shake-up where the AI is building towards these more historical templates, and they're actually like very, very viable, because some of the templates are viable, but it's also, there's so much, like it's like 10 years of content, right, where there's different kind of templates, and then some of them don't always get updated all the time. So some nations have quite good designs, some nations have like really like, oh, what the hell happened here? And then there's also some that get applied through content, etc. You get like free templates, and some of those, they also not get updated, right? That's a big thing now with the regimental support. Like we did a big pass on like having the AI update a bunch of the templates, but I'm sure there's going to be some content where like, oh, this probably should have had this as well. It's just like gets missed. And
one of the things I noticed, like the starting templates don't have any.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but these are things that we then like see like, we should probably change this, and then we fix it in the next patch or in a war for example.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wish was different in HoI4? Like, for example, focus trees are a huge hit, but they also cause the most amount of bugs because there's just such an abundance of options that the player has, and then the AI reacts to that one.
Yeah, I very much love it. I think, like, when they came up with focus trees 10 years ago, I think it was amazing. But I very much see them as a double-edged sword. It's pretty much what you're saying, right? Like they're praised because it feels nice and you're like walking through the story. But the downside is, like, in many cases it just breaks down. Like it works in, for example, if you have a competitive multiplayer game and you all play historical, then it works because they're kind of built in this way where you don't have weird friction. But if you then start doing things like one player is Austria and the other one's Poland and you both do Habsburgs, I feel like there should be synergy if you're both a Habsburg, but there's not. There's anti-synergy, and you're just competing with who gets to get Bohemia, and it just feels kind of like bad. So, for me, to answer the actual question, I think a big thing for me, I would love to see having resources be stockpilable, honestly. I think that, but I'm that kind of player. I think that's really cool. Also just because you don't really feel that impact of the Atlantic war that happened with the U-boats and like Britain trying to get the resources into actual Britain proper. And I think that would be a way to actually mimic that much better, like you stockpiling stuff. I think that would be cool. I'm sure there's plenty of people to be like, no, this is a terrible idea. But I'm not necessarily in love with the idea that you can conquer Malaya or Indonesia and then you just get all the rubber teleported to Berlin or Amsterdam. It's like, it's fine, but I would personally like to see that changed.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
One of the features that I think what I really enjoy, sort of like designing my equipment, but I want to go like much more detail. That's what I would. It doesn't fit HoI at all, but I would not mind that. Like set me up my front armor plates. Let me design that. Let me do the side, the back, the top. It's like, and give me a gun designer.
I did think at some point about the squad designer, you know, because like
Squad?
German squads had this very specific design around like 7 or 8 or so riflemen or 5 riflemen with a light machine gunner with then an assistant and a squad lead. And whereas the American sort of squads, they relied more on like the M1 Garand side. I do think it would be kind of cool, but again, it's similar to what you said. Like maybe that's not maybe HoI is not the place for this, right? Like, is that too much granularity? It's like, again, I'm sure that there will be plenty of people that will be like, wow, this is amazing, you should implement it now.
But
and
now
also,
a new player.
yeah, as a new player, you're like, I don't want to have to deal with it.
Squad level fill battalions, yeah.
It's like sometimes we have to put our wants as well. Like there's things we want to add to the game, but sometimes they have to take second place in favor of like what the community actually wants to see. So can be tricky, but this is what has to be done.
With the resources, I was gonna ask that one anyway. Like if you'll ever be able to stockpile resources, because it is a little bit weird that Germany, if they start the Second World War, just go from, you know, we can build all of our planes to, okay, we have 2 rubber now.
What about maintenance, etc.? Yeah.
It would be cool if you can actually stockpile, like, you know, I'm going to war and you're going to buy a bunch of rubber. I'm a big player of Victoria 2. I'm a big lover of Victoria 2, where you also could do this. You could buy like all the concrete in the world and then build all your bunkers and stuff. It was very fun. Like, it was a weird system, I'm not gonna lie. I still think the people that made this, they don't know. They didn't have a clue what they did.
Oh, you don't know, but literally no one knows.
No, exactly. I know this. I've read this
The
story.
economy code is
But I think that like the fact that you had this as a player experience was really, really fun, right? Of course, it shouldn't be as broken that you can ruin the economy like that. That as Germany would buy all the concrete, and now the French can't build a Maginot Line anymore. But I think the idea, if executed well, it could be very fun and beneficial to HoI.
With the new director, is there anything that will change or has changed in terms of the release cycle, or, you know, just in general?
I don't think so. I mean, one of the things is it's quite taxing. You know, there's a lot of things going on, and one of the reasons why we needed to make this change is because Peter was like trying to do HoI, but he's also working on something new. And that was too much. I don't think necessarily like much has changed, apart from, you know, that we now have someone on board again full time that is fully dedicated to HoI4 and not has their attention split. I think that's quite important, because there's a lot of things that happen all the time. Like even now, right, with my full attention, there will still sometimes be these little things that can slip through. Like, oh, this bug, this probably should have been and ended up in this patch instead. But I think that's probably the main key takeaway from my end, at least. I don't know if you see any other differences in this.
I mean, you're of course different compared to Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
was
a different person.
different to Dan. But I think when it comes to release cycle, no, I think we found sort of the place where we want to be at. Yeah, we have like a pretty good idea of what we want to do for the next few years. We also we want to spend more time on the base game quality. We want to spend more time on the quality of life stuff is super important. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the game, and like it's part of the new user experience. So all this stuff is actually important to us.
Yeah,
we have lots of plans.
It's something that we talked with the company wide in general, right, with other studios on the Paradox as well, is that as time goes on and games get older, we kind of need to think about it. Do we need to then put a bit more time and effort into like keeping them healthy, as we call them, or as we call that? And the answer is like, there's not a resounding like yes or no, but the answer is like probably. You know, if a game is like 10 years old, like HoI and Stellaris right now, then it makes sense that we spend more time on like keeping them healthy and like fun and playable, and looking at old stuff that hasn't been updated and touched in a long time. And that is like that whole equation of like, how do we do this and where do we do this? And that's something that is always on the sort of topic. It's always a topic that's being talked about.
How does the team, or I guess the higher ups, decide when to move on from HoI4 and make HoI5 instead?
And that will be me. When we decide that, I mean, so it's very hard to make a video game. And then, especially if you've then had a successful video game, you kind of just want to work on it. I mean, it's what we do with DLC. I know some people hate our DLC model, but it's also the reason why the game is still alive after a decade, right?
Yep.
And so we figure sort of we look at sort of where the state of the game is, where's the player base, you know, what are sort of like other things that's been happening in the market, and then we based on that we sort of look at, okay, is it time to start working on the new Hearts of Iron, or is it, you know, or do we want to do like a remaster, or there's a lot of different stuff that we could be doing. But that's basically how I look at it. You look at sort of like, okay, where's the player base at? Not are they asking for it, but like, okay, is this like is this like if we have this super big community or not? Because if you have a very tiny community, then like it's harder to sort of say, let's spend a lot of money and time into making a sequel. And then like, okay, is the engine sort of like, is the tech sort of preventing you from doing what you want to do all the time? So those are sort of like,
that's what I wanted to say as well. It's like something that is particular to Hearts of Iron 4 as well, or Hearts of Iron in general as a franchise, is at some point you sort of like run out of what you can do with World War 2, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie that we have already explored those fringes very, very much. Like, there's a lot of alt historical paths that you can take, and like there's the whole Götterdämmerung expansion, which explores the whole sort of German Wunderwaffe angle, which I think is great. Honestly, I love that. But at some point you'll be really grasping for straws, and then you either then need to move on to something else, or you know, have to redo it. Like, we already did a bunch of majors, right? And most of them are based on the sort of NSB, like the no step back model, where I think in general we sort of assess that as this is what we consider like a modern take on like HoI4 content. And then we just sort of like start working on like the new majors, like we did Japan and Germany before that. But you know, at some point that you can't keep doing that. I mean, yeah, you can't keep doing that, but I don't think people will be very happy if we re-release all of those majors again for a third time. You know, like that's also something we
and we teased, of course, as well, right?
How much does multiplayer influence what gets made? You know, like features or focus trees?
I don't think it's necessarily something we like. We look at what's best for the game in general, but we do keep in mind multiplayer very much, because we know we have a very large minority of people that play multiplayer for Paradox Games standards. And there are also people that know the game. A lot of those people know the game in and out, right? So
around 4% of our player base plays multiplayer.
Yeah.
So it's not that large.
It's not that statistically, but we do have a lot of players.
We have a lot of players. So yes, in total, there's actually a significant amount of people. And so multiplayer is very important to us. We spend quite a lot of effort on creating like a stable environment, like low out of sync stuff, low out of sync rates. But yeah, and when it comes to balance wise, so this is my opinion. I don't know if the design team or you disagree with it, but I think multiplayer balance to me is, I don't care about that, because I know that all the multiplayer communities, they play with their own mods anyway, and they'll tweak the balance the way they want it. So yeah, but that's my take on it.
My take is that the game should be balanced.
I'm not saying it shouldn't be balanced.
But I try to say with that to be more direct is like, you know, we for example the thing with the regimental support, where there was for sure like a bit of stat blood that was like that came in with we immediately took that seriously and started looking at, okay, what are things that we can make it can do to make it more fair, and then we also immediately started looking at the line artillery in general as part of that as well, right? Because I think one of the big things was just the support infantry guns. They were very, very strong for how much IC you were paying for them, basically, because you only needed 4 artillery pieces. So I don't think, like, we don't really balance the game necessarily around multiplayer, but we need to make the game balanced and fun, that it's like not as easily exploitable. And then, yeah, as Neil said, like, there is a lot of like people that just play with multiplayer mods that does tweak the balance anyways. But I don't think that we should aim to make it outright broken or like super easy to exploit. That you just make this like super fat division and you just like blast everything.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wished the players understood better about how development decisions get made?
This is a really hard ask, but I think it would be amazing if people know how hard it is to make games. Because people often think like, hey, you just press the button. And now you have multiplayer functionality, right? I remember in my career I read this, and someone said like, hey, you just go into Unreal 5 and you just click the networking button. I'm like, yeah, man, that's how it works. I wish. Like,
Yeah.
But maybe he was trolling. I don't think so. But,
I think I'm thinking about like the focus tree designs, right, and the choices behind that. Like we do a lot of research on these sort of countries. There's actually a lot of stuff that goes into it, and because our game is so moddable as well. Like this is like we're shooting ourselves in the foot sometimes. I think like that, but we're never gonna make it less moddable. Like we're never gonna do that. But modders can do an amazing job on focus trees as well. And then they're sort of like, but the modder can just do it for free. And I'm like, yeah, I suppose they could. But yeah, we do spend a lot of time doing research. And we also like discuss quite a bit on how we want to portray certain events. Because, I mean, it's World War II, so a lot of sort of crimes against humanity happened. And HoI is not a game about that. It's about the war, like the warfare aspect. But still, sometimes these things pop up. And you know, we sometimes make choices about, you know, does it make sense to add a certain path to a country, right? We've had some internal discussions with that as well based on the gates. I know people complained about, oh, why don't you have this and this and this path? There's always reasons for it. It's not that we're doing it out of spite.
Is there anything that you're personally proud of in the game that you feel never got enough attention?
I mean, I don't really have to make any features.
I mean, it's like, for me, it's mostly because I'm such an overarching vision, right? But there's one little thing I'm working on right now, which I hope will end up in the game, which I didn't promise this on the forum, but...
You can talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
You know, if you don't know what it is.
No, I probably do know, but I don't know what you're going to talk about.
No, I can talk about this.
Do it.
So, someone requested on the that like when you do when you're playing MP, right, and you are playing in the Spanish sim, it's a little thing, but little things matter so much. And someone's like, well, it would be amazing if you can ping and you actually see that. So I started working on this, like whenever I have some time, to make it available that when you are volunteering, then both the host nation and other volunteers can actually see the ping as well. So just a little thing, because otherwise it's only faction bound. And I kind of live by that creed that very small things like that really, really help a lot.
Yeah, it's a good feature.
Propping up the value and making the game feel extremely polished, you know, and that also that we are actually do listen at it, or listen to the community and like look at what you guys have to say. So I'm kind of proud. It's not in the game yet. I wanted to test it later today or maybe tomorrow because it's already quite late. But hopefully, like post summer, because I don't think we'll have many more patches. I think we have one more planned patch before summer, and I think the cutoff point for that is already soonish.
It just passed. It's 5 o'clock actually.
But for me, it's like the little things like that. I'm very proud of that as well, or always. Like it makes the game, in my opinion. It helps so much.
Is there anything else you want to share with the players?
Thank you for playing.
Yeah, thank you for playing, and keep sharing. You know, give us constructive feedback, and we will for sure listen. And we can't always do everything that is asked of us, but we for sure take it seriously. Like I always try to make a big backlog of things that I pick up on the forums. Like keep it in the back of my head.
Me too.
It's all just a big prioritization thing.
Usually have like weekend fixes going.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like $2 or $3 that I found.
Do some vibe coding on the weekend.
No, just normal programming.
And if you're interested in learning the ideal HoI4 template, you can watch this video.